this guy, wait, he falls, he's asleep, sir. Everything.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is a smaller crowd than I expected.
Well, they're all doing our exercise.
Oh, is it, we're interfering with exercises? Okay.
Oh, yeah, you guys.
It's good they're committed to health, those of us who didn't make it today. So Chuck's going to record it. Maybe, I think there were a lot of questions answered, probably by West County. Was anybody there for the meeting with West County at the neighborhood discussion? I think it was neighborhood 5 and 6. And so if you haven't had a chance to watch that back, I would really encourage it. I think you know, I've heard positive comments from everybody who was in attendance about that discussion. It was very informative. And so, you know, some of that information is going to be repeated today. You're probably going to hear some things that weren't mentioned there. And then we'll leave time that we can just have general open questions and discussion too. So, but some of the main things that I wanted to make sure that we covered with you is to let you know what are the safety precautions that we have in place in our community related to fire safety. Talk about what you can expect to happen in the event that a smoke alarm or sprinkler is activated, both inside your apartment and then also outside in one of the common areas. What would happen? Try to answer the question, what would you do if there were a fire? We'll go through a bunch of different scenarios, and then, as I said, just open discussion. And so I'm going to start right into it. The first thing that I want to make sure everybody's aware of is that our entire building is sprinkled. Okay, I'm sure you've seen that in your apartments. I don't know, Bart, would you be able to maybe turn the light down just on the front here? I've got a lot of pictures to go through here, so if you can see the red arrow, there, though, it's pointing at what the sprinklers look like. And those have been installed according to code in every apartment, as well as the common areas. And really the purpose is to provide additional fire suppression before EMS could arrive. The other thing to mention that was mentioned at the neighborhood meeting is that the fire department has the ability to plug into our sprinkler system and boost the water that's coming out of our sprinklers. I thought that was an important thing to point out. The second thing is that we've got smoke detectors placed according to code in every apartment and throughout the common areas. You guys probably know where those are in your apartment, but I did notice when watching the video of the meeting that a resident, I think, didn't see any smoke detectors, didn't see any sprinklers, so I just wanted to call attention to what exactly these things look like. And if you need to see better, you might be able to see that screen better back there. Feel free to just move around, or if you want to come closer as we go through this. The third thing is to mention is that we have fire doors that are located in the hallways. And those provide an additional 1 hour fire separation for you. It's an additional smoke barrier in the event of a fire. And actually the fire door that's located between the community center building and where the apartment building starts, which is at the top of that incline as you leave 40 West, it's actually a 2 hour fire separation there. Those doors are held open by magnets, and when our fire alarm system goes off, the magnet releases, and that's what causes that to close. And I've mentioned that because on the 3rd floor you've seen those close from time to time. That's related to trips that have happened over in the care center where we've had to go reset it before those will magnetize again. And so when we talk about what you do in the event of a fire, we think it's important that you know where these fire doors are. The other thing to mention is that every apartment has a 1 hour fire rating. And so I've got listed here, your front door has a fire rating to it. We've got the 5/8 inch drywall, fire rated drywall as opposed to standard 1/2 inch. Used a fire blocking assembly. And then also between the floors, so between the 2nd and 3rd floor, there's a 2 hour fire rating between those 2 floors. And so we think that those things are important for you to know. But in totality, your apartment is designed with a 1 hour fire rating. Correct, Tim?
Do what?
You just jump in here if I say anything incorrect.
No.
Yeah. 1 hour fire rating for the apartments.
Yes.
Yeah. The next thing is that if we would have a fire, we would be treated as either a 2 or a 3 alarm fire. And what that means is that not only would West County respond, but also the surrounding municipalities would respond to a fire here at Mason Pointe. And our local West County EMS is located right there at Clayton and Mason, and they tell us that they could be here in 4 minutes or less for a response time. I've got a couple quotes here from what the gentleman from West County EMS actually said during the neighborhood meeting. One of his comments were that you would have so many fire trucks, or you would have fire trucks as far as you could see out your window if there was a fire here at Mason Pointe. And he said there's never a shortage of manpower available. And so we think that's important that everybody hears that, because we just talked about all the specs in your apartment to create a 1 hour fire rating. These firewalls that we have, fire doors throughout the building, sprinklers, all that, and knowing that emergency response is 4 or less minutes away hopefully gives you a bit of a secure feeling. Number 6 is that we do routine inspections of our fire safety systems and equipment each year. We have extinguishers located throughout the hallways. The one hanging there, you can see a blue tag on it. It was inspected. These are inspected 1 time per year in independent living. I think that tag says July 2023. So probably in July 2024, you'll see a new tag get replaced there. We do an annual visit and walk with our fire marshal. And also semi-annual inspection of the fire alarm systems, which we recently did, a couple weeks ago. We do it twice a year. One time it's a visual, which is what...
Annual is done in February.
The annual was done in February when we came into your apartments. The other time, what's the difference between the other visit?
The visuals come back, they just inspect the power supplies and the batteries for the backup systems, what is all that is.
Okay.
That's done twice a year.
Yeah, so that company's out here twice a year just inspecting fire alarm system components, and a couple weeks ago it was the smoke detectors in your apartments. That's why we were going through. And so those are really 6 important points that we think it's important for everybody to know. I also wanted to share some other quotes from West County EMS that the gentleman made during that discussion. He said that this is a gold standard for fire-safe buildings, was one of his comments. He said, your community is incredibly safe. I already mentioned you would have fire trucks as far as you could see out your window. There's never a shortage of manpower available. There's no part of this building that we can't reach. And we have a fire marshal who is very particular, and he loves this building, which is surprising to hear if you know that. But it's good to hear. Ken?
Yep. Question about getting the vehicles there. Will there be anything so they would have access coming down the outer road without having to go across the bridge, come back, and have access? Because if you'd have an accident at the bridge that comes over, they wouldn't be able to get through there. Is there any kind of a proviso set up that, hey, when these go up, that it will be a one-way street coming west rather than east?
Barb, do you want to comment on that? I don't have the response there.
He said in the video when he was there that if for some reason they had to, they would come down this outer road on this side the wrong way. There would be no questions asked. They would come the wrong way.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. And so, just to kind of sum up those points there, is that the building is built tough with sprinklers, smoke detectors, fire doors, 2-hour separations. There's plenty of manpower that would be available in here in less than 4 minutes should the need arise, and that we have regular ongoing collaboration between us and West County EMS. We thought that those things were important for you to know. And then, if anybody recognize that logo, can you see it there? I could probably get sued for doing this. But, that's the Ford, Built Tough logo with Mason Pointe right there in the middle of it. Okay, so those are the main things that we want to draw attention to, but now I want to get into just what you guys could expect in the event that either a smoke alarm is tripped or a sprinkler is tripped inside your apartment. And so the first situation here on the left speaks to if a smoke alarm goes off in your in your apartment. When that happens, we have a company that monitors our fire alarm systems. Okay, and so when that happens, when they see that a smoke detector is going off in apartment 309, what they do is they have a phone tree that they'll start calling to reach one of us here at Mason Pointe. It starts with security, and if they can't get the security to answer the phone, then they'll call Tim. If Tim doesn't answer, then it goes to Carl, who is our manager of plant operations. If Carl doesn't answer, then it goes to me. And if I don't answer, it goes to our main line. And what that does is that notifies us that, hey, you got a smoke detector going off in 309 so that we can respond to that apartment and see what's going on. With smoke alarms inside your apartment, it does not automatically trigger a call to EMS, and it does not set off horns and strobes throughout the building. Okay, it starts with just a response from Mason Pointe to see what's happening there. If your sprinkler head is tripped and your sprinklers start going off in your apartment, that's a different story. For the sprinklers to be tripped, it has to reach a temperature of, 150?
155.
So above 155 is the temperature it takes to set off your sprinkler inside your apartment. Okay, that means there's a fire in your apartment. If that happens, then the horns and strobes are going to go off throughout independent living. Our fire doors are going to close, so those magnets will release and close those doors in the hallways. It automatically dispatches EMS, and then obviously there's going to be an on-site response there too to see what's going on in that specific area. Okay, so does that make sense? Smoke alarms, it does not set off all the bells and whistles. Sprinkler, it sets it all off. The smoke alarms are just your typical smoke alarms that I don't know there's two different types, but it's not the type that requires the temperature to raise, to go off. Yeah, it's basically looking, I think, at something to break the laser or whatever. I'm not an expert in it. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It could be dust, it could be smoke, it could be anything that sets off our smoke alarms. But for the sprinkler, it takes the temperature getting that high. And so I've got pictures here just in an apartment. This happens to be the same apartment style. Some of you may be familiar. We did have a resident who left some items boiling on the stove that created a lot of smoke. Ended up coming out into the hallway, into the common area. This happens to be an empty apartment. It's the same floor plan. And so what the yellow arrow is pointing at there is where the sprinkler is located. Gives you an idea of what it looks like. It's also, I want to point out that the smoke detectors that we'll show you are not located in the kitchen. That is another sprinkler in that apartment layout. That's a sprinkler in the bedroom. We've got a sprinkler in the kitchen there above the refrigerator. That's the second bedroom sprinkler. That's just a close-up of what the sprinkler looks like. And then in both hallways, this is just off the living room in this apartment, but that's where that smoke detector is. And then that's the second smoke detector, also located off of the living room. And so in that particular situation, there were really a few things we think that contributed. Those smoke detectors, it took quite a while actually before they went off. And this happened to be in a third floor apartment, so it's got the taller ceilings there. It did eventually set off the smoke detector, but You can see it took a while just to fill up that space and to reach ultimately where the smoke detectors are. So everybody seen these in your apartments, I assume? Okay. And so what to expect in the event of a common area smoke alarm being tripped. If it's in the common area, that is going to set off the horns and strobes throughout the building. Okay, so that's a difference. If it's in your apartment, no horns and strobes. If it's in the common area, that is enough to set off the whole system, which will automatically dispatch EMS. And again, you'll have an on-site response to see what's happening there. And it's the same is true with if the sprinklers get tripped in a common area, that's going to set off everything. And so I've got some pictures here just to make sure everybody's familiar with what I'm talking about when I talk about some of these things. These are pictures of the fire doors. These are the ones on the 3rd floor. This is right there at the top of the incline when you leave 40 West. The one on the right are the fire doors just past the hook and needle room on the 3rd floor. And then on the 2nd floor, we've got the fire doors that are just past the maintenance shop there. And to the right, those fire doors with the orange arrows are just down past the 2nd floor meeting room. And then on the 1st floor, we have one set of fire doors. Those are in that hallway. You can see at the end of that hall there is the wellness center. And so they're kind of right there in the middle of that hallway. And then the next time you go to 40 West, I've got arrows pointing to all the sprinklers in that area. Those are all sprinkler heads or smoke detectors. There is one smoke detector in there, right outside of where 40 West is. These are a couple of sprinklers on the 3rd floor activity area. We've got a sprinkler here at the front entrance of the independent living building. And those, again, these aren't all inclusive. I walked around, took pictures one day. I probably didn't catch them all, but I just wanted to point them out what they look like. You know, because these are things a lot of us probably don't even notice. You've probably seen them and you don't even realize it. Even that we have.
There's over 1,000 sprinkler heads, I think.
Yeah, Tim just said there's over 1,000 sprinkler heads in the building. And so, and again, the point of those sprinkler heads are to suppress the fire while we wait for EMS to get here over that first 4 minutes. That's really the point of those. So again, just what to expect in the event of a smoke detector or sprinkler going off. If it's in your apartment, it's the monitoring company that's going to notify us, and then we're going to respond. And it's not going to call EMS. It's not going to set off horns and strobes unless our response would dictate that that's necessary. Then we may call 911. Or a fellow resident could do the same. In the common areas, in order to set off the fire alarm system and dispatch West County EMS and fire, it would take either your apartment sprinkler being set off, a common area sprinkler being set off, or a common area smoke detector. Okay? And so the common question we get is, what do I do if a fire alarm goes off? And the answer is that you have to use your judgment. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a blanket approach. There's so many different situations that come up, and so we'll go through some of those today. But the way we see it is that there's really 3 options, and this was what the gentleman from West County EMS said is when in doubt, get out. If you can get out of the building, that's great, and that's what you should do. We've got stairwells located down the hallways. We've got entrances on the 3rd floor and the 1st floor of the apartment building. And I'll show you more pictures of that 3rd picture on the right is actually accessible on the 2nd floor. And so you may not be aware that is available to those residents there. And so I'll show that in a little bit better detail in a little bit. And so I went through each floor here and put just the outside access with no stairs required. So on the first floor, you've got the courtyards, your own patios, you've got the front entrance, the pool exit. On the second floor, you also have your balconies. You've got that exit near the community center elevator, which I'll show you in pictures next. On the third floor, you've got a balcony, you've got the 40 West patio, the community center exit. And so, but I want to talk about the second floor again. So it's not pictured here, but the community center elevators would be right over here. Okay, is everybody kind of oriented to where what I'm showing here? I would probably be like where the maintenance shop is. And so out that door, it's got the exit sign. That door is unlocked. It leads to a stairwell. Okay, and it's not the most glamorous looking stairwell, but in the fire, who cares, right? So it'll open up to this. I do want to point out that next to this door, there's a button right here that says press to exit. You don't actually have to press that button. I'm sure it served a purpose at one point, but you don't have to do that anymore. But it leads out onto this, which is not necessarily a large landing spot, but I know in the past, a lot of times there's concern for folks maybe in power chairs or who are unable to move up and down stairs that lived on the second floor. This would at least be an outdoor option. Again, we're talking about the 4 minutes or so until West County could arrive. Anybody, is this the first time? Anybody not know that was there? So actually, when you leave here, if you wanted to take the stairs out the elevator, or rather than the elevator, you just walk past the theater. That's the same stairwell that leads up right over there. So if you want to go on a walking tour after this, feel free to take a look at it. It's not luxurious, but it is there nonetheless. So that's the first thing. If you can get out, by all means, get out. The second option is to move beyond the fire doors to the opposite side of the fire. Okay, that's why we do have these on all 3 floors. And so this actually doesn't make a lot of sense how I have this. But if the fire were over here, then you want to get to the other side of the fire doors. Okay, if the fire were down this hall, you'd want to be on this side of the fire doors. John?
How would we know which side of the fire door the fire is on?
Yeah, so that's probably something we're going to have to talk through a little bit more, because our fire location is located at we have fire panels located at the entrances. Okay, and so if you were in, I think that those are guest apartments right there. If you were in the guest apartment, there's really not a fast way for you to know exactly where the fire is. The only thing is, if you were in this guest apartment, you stepped out and you saw smoke that way, you would at least know, okay, I'm going to come to this side. Does that make sense? But you're not going to know the exact location of the fire immediately.
Like he said when he was at that meeting, he said that you would see the smoke, the door would be hot. So if you felt the door and it was hot, or you saw the smoke, you wouldn't want to go that way. You'd want to go the other way.
But what if what if you're on a different floor, or you don't know, you just hear the smoke alarm go off, or the fire alarm go off. You know that there's a fire somewhere in the building, but you have no, you don't know where.
Yeah, I think you have to, in that situation, it's going to be a matter of what you're seeing too, right? The first thing is you're going to know if the fire is in your apartment, and if it's not, what are you going to do? You're probably going to open your door and you're going to look around.
Yeah, John asked a good question. Don't you have a central PA system that you could announce to the residents where the fire is, what apartments, so on, so what neighborhoods, so to speak, where the fire is, and then tell people where to evacuate to? Do you have something like that set up?
Well, so we do have a PA system. The only thing is it's not going to be immediate still. there's been a couple challenges with the PA system, and that is that oftentimes residents don't hear it. You may hear that it's going off, and then by the time you get out in the hallway where you could hear it, maybe you missed it. The other piece of that is, in the immediate response, there would be a delay between even our team figuring out what was going on, the initial response that they have, and then making the page. And so that is something that we probably need to tighten up, because it is a good question. I think initially, though, at least, you're going off of what you see.
Yeah, but do you have an infrastructure of residents? I mean, you've got various people that run the neighborhood, so to speak. They could identify to this central person that operates the PA system, that you could set up a communication system to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point, John. And we would definitely be open to some sort of collaboration that would involve residents. And I think that's kind of similar to what you guys had up in Nor when Tim was in Columbia, where each of their, like our neighborhoods, they had given radios, walkie-talkies, so that they could radio in an emergency between each other what was happening. And so that is something we could look at doing here if there's interest.
If the PA system is used today, not only is it difficult to hear in the apartment, but you do hear the alarm part. Then you step out into the hall, then you can't make out what in the world they're saying. It'd be very, very wise to have people who enunciate their words correctly and slowly. When it's all garbled, it means nothing.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. We have heard that feedback. We also talked about using Groupcast to let people know where the fire is, but again, the only thing is the delay between the actual event happening. Whoever is going to be in a place to send out that message, like the phone calls that we send you or text message. Did anybody get the text message the other day?
Yeah.
No? Oh, some of you did? Okay. So text messages, phone, or email. So it's definitely an area that it's an important thing that we can clean up. Not sure how to do that the best, I think. But the fire location is at each fire panel, which is at each of our entrances. And so...
And they're at every nurse's station.
Well, yeah, they're at every nurse station, but that doesn't really help you all over here. And so, yeah, we could talk about what that would look like, some sort of resident communication system. There certainly would be communication coming from Mason Pointe. It's just how fast you're going to get it, I can't guarantee yet.
Following Bill's question, what part of the hard of hearing is provided? You can't hear the garb, you can hear okay, and it's garbled. What mechanism is available for people that don't hear very well?
So are you talking about for the messages or for the fire alarm system itself? Oh, you want me to repeat it?
Either that or a microphone.
Oh, yeah. Kim's question was what provision is made for people who are hard of hearing with regard to the overhead page system. Did I restate that correctly?
Yeah. Following what Bill said, you can garble if you get up there, but you got another situation where the people can't really hear, and how are you going to work them inside and then outside?
Yeah, so we'll put some thought into this. There's different ways for us to do it. Groupcast would let us do that because the phone call would be very clear. And so it's a matter of figuring out who's going to do that. And I'm trying to think if it happens at 11 o'clock at night, who is on site trained to use that system and in that type of emergency be able to do that. And so we'll put some thought into that. the timely notification so that you can know the answer to Joan's question, which side of the firewall to go to. I would say though, I'll just reiterate, if you're in this apartment and the fire alarms go off and it's not in your apartment, your first reaction is probably going to be to come out to the hall and see what you can see. And if you could see smoke that direction, then the best thing for you to do would be just to come over here on this side of the fire doors. Does that make sense, Mr. Garvin?
In the event that the sprinklers go off, how large an area does it cover?
I mean, if a sprinkler goes off in an apartment, do all the apartments get soaked?
A sprinkler head, the only one that goes off is the only one that goes. It's not like the movies, if one sprinkler head goes off, all 10 of them go off. Only the one that blew the glass bulb will go off. My only recommendation for y'all being night owl, if the fire alarm goes off, y'all walk outside. If you can't hear the message, you don't see no smoke, you don't smell nothing in your area, the apartment is designed to shelter in place, and you can shelter in place because in less than 5 minutes, the fire department will be here and our staff will be responding to address the area. Because depending on the location of the fire in this IL building, if there was one, the fire department will decide how they will evacuate by the time they get there. We would start in the area where the fire was to evacuate those people, but by the time the fire department arrives, they take over the scene and then they tell us what to do after that. And that's how it would go from there. So if the alarm goes off, you don't hear where it's at, and you don't see no smoke, don't smell nothing, my recommendation would be just to shelter in place to see if people show up for further directions. And maybe by then, we can train the staff if the fire's in the IL, maybe we need to repeat the message every couple of minutes or something. That's something we can train on who announces the fire. That's other options we can look at. But that's why your room is designed where you can shelter in place. That'd be my best recommendation. If you don't see no smoke, don't smell nothing, I wouldn't recommend walking around the building trying to find it. I would stay where you're at. That'd be your safest thing.
And so that was going to be the next option here, is to shelter in place. And we got some tips here just for when you do that. You want to close your doors, place a wet towel at the bottom of the door. You could go to your balcony. Again, your apartment has a 1-hour fire rating, and EMS is going to be here in 4 minutes or less. And so if your apartment is in the area of where the fire is, you're going to be one of the first residence units that they come to. And so, again, you've got an hour of protection in your apartment, and then there's additional things that you can do by closing doors, sealing gaps with wet towels that even extends that. EMS people have asked about, should I leave my door open? Should I put a pillow outside my door? How should we do it? We don't have any of those recommendations in the moment. If you think of unlocking your door, you could go ahead and do that. But EMS made clear to us that they'll clear every inch of our building themselves. Because if you would leave your apartment, there's nothing to say that another resident may not seek refuge in your apartment on their own way to try and be safe. And so there's no reason to worry about putting a pillow outside your door or anything like that. There's so many variables. This is the cleanest recommendation that we can make to you, and that is to shelter in place. The picture that I have here is actually a picture of a fire you're supposed to close your door when you sleep at night, because if there is a fire, you can see that this is the hallway of a home. Pretty well tore up by a fire, but the bedroom looks untouched because the door was closed. It gave EMS more time to get there and get the fire under control before it spread to the bedroom. And so this really is going to be the cleanest option, the one that we think works no matter the circumstance, whether you know where the fire is or not, the shelter in place. And so again, just you're going to have to use your judgment whether or not you want to exit the building, move beyond a set of fire doors, opposite of the fire, or shelter in place. All right, any questions about that? Yes, Ms. Garvin.
Is the garage considered a common area? Does it have the sprinklers and stuff?
Yes, there's sprinklers and smoke detectors down there.
Yep.
Anybody else have a question?
I just wanted to thank you for telling us how the smoke detectors versus the fire sprinklers work, because most of us thought the smoke detectors and the sprinklers were all, work the same way.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that information.
Yeah, thanks for that.
One other comment, again, to emphasize the fourth point you had on one of those things. The EMS fire guys that talked to us emphasize that when they respond here to a fire alarm, first thing they'll do is they check the fire panel to determine where the location is. Immediately then, their top priority is to check every apartment in the building. So it's not an afterthought with them that, gee, a half hour later, after they get the fire under control, they're gonna come around and check the apartments. First thing they're gonna do is, all these firemen are arriving, is dispatch them, and he's assured us that they're familiar with the layout of the building. They will have firefighters going to every apartment. It would be good if your door is unlocked, because they're gonna come in. If your door is locked, they're still gonna come in. If they have to break the door down to get in, they are gonna check every apartment. So people that have disabilities or hearing problems, you can pretty much be assured that within 15 minutes, there's gonna be a firefighter at your door or outside the door in the hallway telling you what to do. And probably far more efficient than anything that we can get over the PA system in that same amount of time.
Thanks for your comment. That is why we shelter in place.
Does that mean we should not, lock our doors at night when we go to bed?
No, that's not what we're saying. But if you were awake, let's say, and you knew you were going to stay in your apartment, if you think about it, unlock it. But to Mr. Abraham's point, they made a point of telling us even if your door is locked, we're getting in. So.
There is a Knox box on the building that's.
I remember from the question.
Yeah, and there, Tim just mentioned that we do have a Knox box that they have access to our building to get in anytime.
Would it be possible for someone to give us a walkthrough,
To show you some
We're on the
things?
second floor. Could someone give us a walkthrough?
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. Yeah.
And who would that person be?
Well, we can do it after this meeting, and of course, I look at Barb first.
There she is.
It's just a natural reaction.
We've all seen these signs on the elevators that say you don't take that in the event of a fire. And I guess my understanding is the elevator shuts down to prevent somebody from foolishly doing so. What happens if you are in the elevator at that time? Are you in your own little toaster oven?
No, so I don't want to misspeak, but I believe it calls to, well, I'll let Tim.
There are smoke detectors outside your elevators. So if the elevator goes off on the second floor, the smoke detector there goes off, it'll recall the elevator to the first floor. And that's where it calls in the fire. And then there is a fireman's operator section in there where the fire department's got their own key. They can put it in the elevator and they can operate the elevator. And when they go on the main floor, it's got a recall switch, so they can recall the elevator down to the floor they come in on in case it went off somewhere else. So they have keys to override the system to run the elevator. That's designed by code, so they can run the elevator. And if not, they got other ways to get to the elevator too, but they do have keys to run the elevator in case there's a fire. So it's up to them.
So we have about 20 minutes here, and I did a little pop quiz, but this is your time. I want to make sure I'm talking about the things that you actually want to hear about and not boring you for an hour. So if there's things that you don't want to, if there's things that we haven't talked about yet that you want to, by all means, just raise your hand and we can. I've got some questions here, though, that I thought we could go through as a group. So I knew he would be here. So the first one is, David Garvin fell asleep while he was boiling some pasta. one night. And so true or false, in this scenario, horns and strobes will be set off throughout the building. That's false, right? And I've got it listed here. The only thing that you look at that last sentence there, it said Janet would then know not to leave David unattended in the future.
It actually works the other way.
Oh, okay.
I'm the one who set it off at the house. So.
The other scenario, a wire shorted on a Christmas tree in the third floor living room causing a fire in that area. True or false, in this scenario, horns and strobes would be set off throughout the building?
Yes.
That's true. That's right. And so I've got some maps here that I thought we could just go through a bunch of different scenarios. The yellow is meant to indicate where you are, and that red fire-looking thing up there is where the fire is. And then these red blocks here are the fire doors. So I thought we could just go through some different scenarios and what a person's options were if they were located where that yellow box is. Does that make sense?
Okay.
All right. And so in this situation, we're on the third floor. And so one of the options, if you're located here, would be to go to the stairwell located down that hall. Another option, if you were out there and you saw smoke coming from that area, you could potentially go to the other side of that fire door. And then that triangle there just is meant to indicate shelter in place because you're safe where you are, right? So those would be the three options for that person. Again, on the third floor, we've got the fire here in the middle of the hall. You can see the yellow box is where you are. So again, option could potentially be to go use that stairwell down at the end of that hall. Could also be shelter in place, right? Because you're not going to pass the fire to get to the other side of the fire door. Still third floor, and we've got a fire. Looks like down by Stephanie's office there in front of the elevator lobby. And so you've got a couple options there. You could go down the stairwell, you could go to that side of the firewall, or stay in your apartment. Yes.
In that case, though, you'd have to open the fire door, right?
In any case, you probably have to.
Yeah, the fire doors are going to be closed whenever the alarm goes
But
off.
if you're on that side, you wouldn't have to.
No, if you were on the other side, you wouldn't have to. But if you're going to cross through, you always have to
But
open.
you're not supposed to open the fire door.
I'm sorry, one question.
Her real question is,
Uh-huh.
how do I open the fire door?
You just push it.
You can push it open. Yeah, and now this is, I think, what Barb was referring to earlier too. If there was smoke billowing under this door, don't push it open, you know. But if in this situation, you'd see clearly where that fire was. And so you can just push through them. You can push through them. They won't hold open. They'll automatically close if you push them open. And then, of course, shelter in place is an option. Oh, is there a comment?
A quick one, in opening the fire doors, like opening a flume also, that fluid, like that fire can sleep right on through that. So there's a caveat there, careful, however you want to call it, that if you open one of those things, you may be exposing it to just like a flue on a furnace where it just shoots on through. I don't know how you...
Well, this is why shelter in place is the easiest message, because there's so many different variables. If you see smoke billowing underneath that fire door, don't open it and go through it. But in this case, if you see the fire over here, then you're safe to assume you can go through here if you're not seeing smoke. And it will close behind you. It's a judgment call. Everything is going to come down to judgment. Still on the third floor, again, you've got the stairwell down the hall as an option. You could also go behind that fire door or that fire door. So you've got a few options there. And you can also shelter in place, which is what we would recommend. Down on the second floor, we've got the same options available there. We've got the stairwell, we've got getting behind the firewall, And we've got shelter in place. Still on the second floor in the hallway, stairwell, shelter in place. Second floor, stairwell, firewall, shelter in place. And again, we're trying to buy 4 to 5 minutes. And these are options for you. Stairwell, firewall, shelter in place. First floor, you can go right out the front door. Look at that. Ken, I think that's from your apartment, actually. You can stairwell down to the garage, or you could go out on your patio, or shelter in place. Again, stairwell, patio, front door, shelter in place. This is actually from Beth's office. Stairwell, firewall, patio, shelter in place. Bob's playing water volleyball, and there's a fire right outside the door. Bob, you're going to go right outside that door from the pool.
Or to stay in the pool.
Or stay in the pool. So there's a lot of options. We, when in doubt, if you can get out, get out. That's what West County EMS said to you. As Mason Pointe, our recommendation, as Tim said, would be to shelter in place, because that takes out all the other variables. And your apartment is spec'd to provide you 1 hour protection from fire, and EMS is 4 minutes or less away, and there's going to be trucks as far as you can see out your window in the event that they're needed. So, Ken?
Guidance for when people come out to where they go so they don't hamper the fire departments. In other words, come out into the rotunda area, don't get in the way of the fire, and you can't always know that. See what I'm saying?
They're going to tell you to get out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
I maybe even with a pole.
Yeah, when the fire department shows up, they're in charge, that's for sure. Yeah.
So if you're in a common area and the fire alarm goes off, are you supposed to stay there? And I don't think going back to your apartment might not be a good idea.
Well, I guess it would depend. I mean, if you took this one, for instance, what floor am I on? Well, it's the same drawing. So if this was the 3rd floor and I was in the living room there, in this particular scenario, you'd see the fire that way, and these would have released. So you could stay, I would assume, in the common area. If you wanted, you could go back to your apartment if you felt safer in the apartment. It depends on the situation. Yeah.
Drew,
If it's in the
what would we do right here, right now?
right here, right now, if there was a fire, where's the fire?
Well, the alarm went off.
Okay. So if the alarm went off, we didn't know where it is, we would follow Barb, because we're on grade here. We could walk right out the front door down that hallway. That wasn't in the presentation. So thank you for adding to it. Or we could go down that stairwell and out to that luxurious little patio.
It happened to us one time, we were in the theater about 7 o'clock.
Okay.
There was a fire in the kitchen. Smoke billowed up those steps. So when we stuck our head out of the theater, we see smoke. So what do we do?
It was, is this another scenario, or did that really happen?
That's really happened.
So if that happened again, I would still go that way. Yes, sir.
This is not a question, but just a statement, and that is that we should try to keep our calm. Too many times people get too excited and they lose their life, they get crippled, etc., because of rioting, running down the hall, people falling, etc. So the best thing is keep your cool and have a plan of action.
Yeah, great advice.
Drew,
Yes, sir.
in one of your earlier slides, you showed a picture of a fire extinguisher inside a little glass door, and I see them when I walk around this place. how do those things fit into any plan? Because I know none of us is trained to use them. Or I don't think so.
Then you want to talk to them?
Well, the staff, we do an annual in-service for the fire extinguishers. You know, when it comes to a fire extinguisher, we take it to the fire. If the fire is not very big, our staff, it's up to them if they want to put the fire out. Or you follow a race, you just want a rescue alarm and contain the fire. So like if it's in a room, you would shut the door of the room to contain the fire. For a fire extinguisher, we do an annual in-service or safety fair. I don't know if they want to learn how to use it, they come up here for that, because we do have a simulator that we use where you actually hold an actual fire extinguisher and you have an actual fire to put out. It's on a monitor. It's a extinguisher that weighs the same amount as the one we got in the cabinets. It's basically you pull the thing out, there's a pin, you pull the pin, take the hose, you aim it at the base of the fire, you squeeze the trigger, and you just swipe side to side to put out the fire. We have a simulator for our safety fair. If you all want to come try it, we can reserve it and set up one for you all too, because we got it to use.
Yeah, we actually are inviting residents to the safety fair that we do for staff this year. It's going to be in April. We'll have that date out soon. Yeah, so staff are trained in using those. Yeah.
Is this a water or a foam, or what type of extinguisher is it?
Dry foam, it's ABC, it's just general.
The ABC. Do you have another question, Richard? Do you have another? No, okay. Well, how'd everybody do on the pop quiz? Wasn't much of a quiz, we just went through a bunch of scenarios.
I did pretty badly.
You did, yeah, you failed it. You definitely failed
Caused the
it.
fire and everything.
That was all the slides I have. What open discussion do you guys want to have? Are there questions that haven't been answered, or has this been helpful at all?
I think you did an excellent job, and I think it was very important to those first couple slides that you showed us, that how secure we are, so that, and the opportunity to look at all the scenarios. Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thank you. Well, it's one of those things, we hope we never have to put it into action, but something we'll just have to probably revisit from time to time. So thank you all for coming to this, and if you have any questions, like always, reach out, okay? Good to see everybody.
Maybe I should go open this door, Chuck, and show them where it comes out here. So this is the same hallway, at least they can see that this door does, in case they couldn't get to anything else. they have a place to at least stand until the fire department got there. You can't hear the paging between that one. Okay, so Chuck, we're gonna say that there's a fire right here, and that my apartment is down this hallway, right here. This is my apartment. So I'm gonna come out the door, I see the fire, I'm gonna go straight down this hall. And because of the smoke, it activated the fire door, but I wanna get out. So. You can't get on the elevator if there's a fire.
This one.
You can't get on the elevator if there's a fire. No elevators.